After commenting on action, which I find it interesting that how solar systemic chaos and earthly happenings are I don't want to use the word colliding. Um, however, and I feel almost like I was given an update regarding the Great Conjunction, like the next level of interpretation or some fill-in information. Actually, it seems more like fill-in information, like supportive information of the theory that the Great Conjunction already happened. And and human existence and all the um angels and demons and whatever someone calls themselves within each different culture. um I think it's safe to say that not very many people on Earth live a normal, what was once considered a normal life anymore, because things are not from my perspective, but things in comparison to 30 or 40 years ago. And it's not because I was part of the majority. I wasn't, and I never was. um it's actually turning out that I've always been the minority. I know that I've always been the minority in every situation. I honestly can't think of a situation where I wasn't the minority. So that's why I have another issue with the race card. Um, the But on to the next level, and part of the compilation within the cultural artifacts, which were talked about in the video I was viewing yesterday evening. And the other one is called the Torquetum. And there's certain names. Ptolemy, who was an astronomer or astrologist. I think sometimes those two curriculums sort of lend themselves to one another. Astrology is more a system of numerical mysticism, and I think calculus comes into play. Um, uh, and astronomy is more of just a study of what the eye views. That's my interpretation. I'm not trying to tell. It just gives a frame of reference of where I'm coming from within my thinking processes. I'm not telling anybody else how to interpret something. I think as we get older, we realize that every person um, has to interpret things for themselves. Um, so this uh, Torquetum is the video, and again, it's just a brief little synopsis that is is given on each artifact in the compilation. Um, and it's something I'll pay close. I'll give closer attention to in regard to now a coinciding of because I'm immediately the first thing I thought of when I was looking at this artifact. First of all, there's always the authenticity issue, and people want to laugh and everything about when you form a theory and and then somebody goes off and says, "Oh, she thinks that's real. She thinks that's a real artifact. She doesn't know that we did it." That's your issue. I'm only giving logical analysis based on information I'm receiving, and yes, assuming that is factual information and that the Torquetum is an authentic, as in antique, or more than antique, but an antiquity, because I think that the word antiquity is applied to an artifact that's older than like an antique, even though it's got the same base in it. Again, that's my interpretation. And so the authenticity of the Torquetum and the age thereof and when it was created uh, uh, is sort of beside the point, I think, or can be considered to be it, to to look at the artifact itself. I'm just going to call it artifact because that's how it's referenced in the video. To look at it and listen to the short synopsis. The name Peter Apian, a German man, and I can't remember his curriculum, and I didn't write it down. And I don't remember his involvement. There's a painting talked about, the ambassador painting, where the artifact is represented in the painting. But the point I was making was and is that there's the first thing that came that came to my mind is the clock in the town square of Russia, and I can't remember what town it is, but I've talked about the clock, and there seems to me to be, and so the history between the origins of the Torquetum, which I didn't write that down either. And this again, this is just a really observation and observation of and based on what was brought to my mind as I was seeing the video. And I've talked about the clock before, and gosh, all kinds of stuff comes to mind. For whatever reason, the actress, there's a there it's very how certain subjects that you talk about and memories come back almost immediately. So it's a significant thing in my life. And when I say thing, I'm speaking about and again, it might be just Jesus bringing me into the case uh as a as an authentic, honest recountants. Um, so I began to immediately form a theory or wonder, whatever you want to call it, if there's a significance of uh, or a battle of who's trying to claim the design of the Torquetum, which is much older than the clock in Russia. However, there seems to be, in regard to the depth of technology contained in these two, uh, one antique and the other antiquity artifacts. Um, to me, they both look like illustrations or representations of um, quantum quantum mechanics put in a representative thing, artifact contained in. Um, and so the technology and therefore the intelligence, depending on if there's a cultural and intellectual um, battle that dates back to the Torquetum. Battles date back forever. I can even add the fact that I can see, and this again are my interpretations. Um, how the sands of time, when you think about that and the simplicity of the egg timer, which why they called it an egg timer, I don't know. That's like another thing um that man is trying to claim something that is not um of one specific culture to claim. um and that's hard for me to even say because of that I'm a Christian and I believe Jesus created everything: sun, moon, stars, planets, galaxies, absolutely everything. So other cultures would start arguing with me about that within what I just stated minutes ago or seconds ago. Um, but the fact that the observation can be made um, in regard to the mystery of the Torquetum and what its purpose was it might have been simply designed as a prediction of the was having a conversation with someone like 3 or 4 years ago. No, not that long ago, like 2.5, 3 years ago, about and he was a male, and he was clearly representative of the male culture of astrology, astronomy, electricity, the development, because I immediately could see the depth of history in his um, experience throughout global history. However, when I initially met this person, I didn't have, and I said those words to him because I started picking up on a male, um, uh, women don't have the ability to participate, blah blah blah. Male chauvinist. I didn't have him initially as a typical male chauvinist, but he was showing himself to be within our conversations. The more tight-lipped he got, the more in-depth our conversations became. The more tight-lipped he became within the depth, the more in-depth our conversations became, if I didn't say that right at first. So within that conversation, I talked about and trying to get his viewpoint of of what I was saying. Um, so this Torquetum to me looks like a representative, a creation, an illustration, a 3D illustration uh, of a 3D model prediction of the movement of the solar system, like the change of position of the Earth. And within the conversation I was having with this one gentleman, who ironically has a resemblance to either my present son-in-law or my former son-in-law, because I don't know if they're still married. But I was saying, what if the Earth, all of this solar systemic chaos, is because the solar system is, actually moving, and placement of the planets is changing, and therefore, and I hadn't seen this Torquetum, and I hadn't had a conversation with anybody about it, because this video that I watched is the first that I've seen this artifact, or the first that I've like really, really paid attention. The conversation with the gentleman 2 or 3 years ago came before I ever had any conscious realization or knowledge of this artifact. The So if it is a prediction, and it kind of coincides with the conversation that I was having with him, because I was forming a theory, not forming a theory, but wondering, which we who are, constant thinkers, constant, uh, um, if to me, this Torquetum looks like an illustration and model containing a prediction of the changing of position of the Earth, which I think could have been taking place within the past decade, because I've experienced like really a lot of things, and there's so much, like I've talked about. You have to you have to start wondering, like, what the heck is going on when you're experiencing and seeing so much and hearing, and there's supportive information within reports of other people around the world within video postings on YouTube, because that's pretty much I don't watch through other filters anymore. The And so I was saying within the conversation, and to me, when I look at this Torquatum, it's like I can see that someone else from way back, if it is actually authentic, the information about what they're saying about it, that it was created in the 12th or 13th century, that and it'll be interesting to look up who the who's involved, like their facial likeness. And if I find a facial likeness of the gentleman who I was speaking with in this conversation, I might have been just gleaning information from and through him, from and he might have been getting angry. I don't know. I don't understand uh, other people's reaction. I don't understand the need to secretly contain information, except for from the standpoint of other people not being able to handle the reality of realignment of stars and planets, that might be taking place, or and has been taking place, and then to realize that Pluto is just finishing up, like either this year, because I can't remember, it's almost 250 years that Pluto has one revolution around the sun, and so it's just completing one complete revolution, which coincides with 250 years, the beginning of this nation, the United States. So the fact that like correlation hasn't even been discussed or mentioned here, at least in anything that I've found. I've kind of looked to see if there are any conversations within NASA or any of the other things, and why everybody finds it so insignificant. It is beyond my I think it's important information, obviously. So what I was saying to him was, what if, because I had seen another documentary a few years ago that kind of was talking about different theories, and I can't go into detail because at that time I was just watching the documentary for the purpose of, busy time. It wasn't really grabbing my attention, just my interest. Um, um, however, I remember that it was there were different theories being formed, and I think this was probably like maybe 2000, maybe as much as a decade ago, maybe little more even, where there were different theories being formed at that time, um, about exactly what I'm talking about. Uh, and so, and within the conversation I was having, though, 3 or 4 years ago, um, closer to 3 years ago, 2020, 2021, early 2021, because it was just before I got housing and moved into my apartment. Um, um, I was talking to him about the fact that, and I mentioned the documentary that I had seen years before, and that there were scientists and astronomers, astrologists, having conversations about the realigning of stars, the solar systemic events, but still no one was talking about and making any correlation to Pluto and its revolution around the sun being one complete revolution in in correlation to correlation isn't the right word, to the 250 years of this nation, of the beginning of the United States. Um, and so I said, within the one theory I was watching, and I was skeptical as I was watching. And the one gentleman was saying that there was going to be coning, like the planets were going to begin. The sun would still be the center, but the planets were going to fall like this, which if you're talking about and thinking about the position, if something, if they're all, and it's really kind of interesting. And then how would that affect the Earth's seasons? If the sun's here and we, within my generation, and I think safe to say within the generation before, we have learned that the sun's here and the earth is here on a horizontal plane, or at least that has been the visual representation that we've received throughout our education from the time of elementary school. If then the Earth and all the other planets start moving and fall under the sun, and to use the word under is the best word I can come up with, and actually changes position within what would you call that? Yeah, horizon, equatorial, and ecliptical coordinates, which kind of, they're the words used in video describing the torquetum, which is exactly what I'm talking about. Uh, so again, it's quantum time and quantum mechanics um to me it's really interesting to talk about. Um and to offer a theory and observation about what the Torquetum may have very well been, or be a prediction dating back to the 12th and 13th century of what might be happening in present day solar systemic history. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. Um, and I'm really glad that I paid or pulled that video compilation up yesterday evening, because again, I think it's I think it's supportive information in regard to what's going on in the solar system these days. Uh, and there's a very, again, the as I'm speaking, I can see symbolism popping up, like the Drexel and a dragon. And the first thing any other Christians will want to say is that I'm because of the symbolism coming up as I'm talking. But again, Jesus is my Lord and Savior. He always he has been forever, and whatever symbolism is coming up, he will make more clear to me. And if other people who want to make assumptions about who I am, that's on them, not me. Because there's a certain desolation that's being experienced in and on the earth, and the extremes within the weather patterns and everything. And again, I'm only going based on information that's being presented to me, because I know that I'm being contained in an area, and I don't have the ability to go out and see for myself past certain boundaries of whereby other people allot themselves the freedom, who uh, probably shouldn't have the freedom, but they allot themselves the freedom of travel, while limiting others based on their own cultural belief system, and they expect me to adhere to laws and rules that they don't adhere to themselves, and they created, as far as what I can see. Um, So with that said, I'm gonna sign off and just, I don't know, if anybody finds reason to participate in the conversation,